Welcome on in, folks. For those who do not know, my name is Guest, also known as ItsGuestGaming, and in my opinion, the most important card of April 2024 is dropping this week. It is Red Guardian. Now, Red Guardian has been talked about as a pretty exciting card, to say the minimum, because he is a tech card at a good cost and a good power. But there's a couple of little nuances I want to work through to look at how can we use Red Guardian to what I consider his best advantage, which is in literally everything. So let's dive into Red Guardian. And if you like this type of content, make sure, as always, go ahead and like and subscribe down below as we talk about Red Guardian. Now, he's a 3/3 on reveal. Afflict the lowest power enemy card here with -2 power and remove its cost. So, first off, this is a two-way card. This is a double dueling card. It is a good power, 3/3, pretty standard, but it's actually feeling like a 3/5, obviously, because you're afflicting for -2. So 3/5 is kind of the new 3/4 nowadays, and with the nerf to Zabu, which I do think has some relevance to why Red Guardian is going to actually still be a good card, I think that now you've got a 3/5 card that's removing text. I'm pretty happy about that. So what else can it do, though? Well, removing text seems like a nominal thing, but it depends on when you play Red Guardian. So if you're looking to build a deck that uses Red Guardian specifically on curve, and you're trying to do it on turn 3, listen to this list of cards that it will affect, okay? Sunspot, Angela, Morbius, Deadpool, Kitty Pryde, Nebula, Quinjet, Daredevil, Collector, Jeff, Ravonna. Like, there's a lot of big cards that it can just go ahead and get rid of. I'm removing Move from Jeff, I think, is actually probably one of the more underrated things that people aren't talking about with Red Guardian, because you're never moving Jeff on turn 2. After turn 2. You know what I mean? But if you want to save it for a later play, obviously everyone's talking about Dracula. In particular, it's another card like Lady Deathstrike that gets rid of Dracula. However, that's not the use necessarily that I see this tech card being used for. If you look at decks that run, for example, Iron Man and Cerebro, those are never going to be higher than 0. Those are easy targets. But you can also do it later on with cards like Elsa Bloodstone, even Jean Grey, Mobius and Mobius, we could see some use there. But I wouldn't go into it with the mindset that it's going to be cards that are more than 4 power. So take a look at the board and decide which one you want to hit, normally by turn 4. So I'm going to say 4 power is kind of the maximum threshold. Anything over that is going to be a very rare instance. But for the most part, this card in particular, removing effects from something like a Ms. Marvel, all by herself, typically in the middle lane, you do see that quite often. And I think that alone is more than enough value to justify why this is going to be a good card. I do want to give one very specific shout out, though, to the text on this, where it says, afflict the lowest power enemy card here. This means cards on your enemy's side of the board, not enemy cards as it's technically stated. As we get a sub here, because we're recording this live on Twitch, Retro Leaves, greatly appreciate you using that. And this is where we go, woo, wipe away. Oh, look, we're magical, right? This is what happens on Twitch as we do things live. Now, the other portion to this is with the goblins, it counts as an enemy card because it's looking for cards on the enemy side of the board. That doesn't mean if you have, I don't know, let's say a collector on the other side, you send over a green goblin and then it will look for the collector because it's just that it's just that enemy card, right? No, it will take off the text off of the green goblin. So it does technically work in that aspect, but just make sure you don't get stuck on the idea that it's enemies cards versus card on the enemy side of the board. Once we got that clear, it's just kind of making a little goblin shout out just in case if you wanted to try to get cheeky with it. It's not going to work the way you may think. It's just looking at where the cards are oriented. So what decks can we run with this? A couple of them are pretty easy and simple in my opinion, and some of them just make absolute logical sense, and they will 100% deliver in each of these versions of their archetype. For example, Silver Surfer. this is a no-brainer, right? You're going to see a 3-cost card. You're going to see it in Silver Surfer. What kind of Silver Surfer? To be honest, literally anything. Literally anything. I'm putting together the Brood, Absman, Gladiator, Shaw, big, epic, awesome package just because I think you get enough control from Red Guardian that you could use it on curve on turn 3 if you needed to, or you can save it via the Sera mechanics and then use it on turn 6 to remove if you're facing against Dracula, for example, or you're going up against an Iron Man because it's a Tribunal deck. This tech piece for this type of deck should be pretty good. Jeff is probably your flex spot here, but I like Jeff. I mean, you could put in Nakia if you want to go all in on all of the power and try and get Shaw as high as possible. You don't have to, but I'm going to leave that as my my relative flex spot for Jeff the Baby Land Shark. Pretty simple, right? What else? Well, he's a 3 power card, so Cerebro 3. Again, another no-brainer. We're going to take the deck that we had with US Agent and modify it just a tad because US Agent did not work. Sorry for all of you who ended up getting US Agent. Really, eventually, at some point. If you got it or chose not to, just don't use it. Cool? Awesome. Cerebro 3, though, is a good location. It has a lot of tech utility, very similar to how Valkyrie works. So put it in Cerebro 3. Pick your own favorite Cerebro 3. But now let's get, we got the 2 obvious ones out of the way. I just wanted to throw them out there because everyone's going to talk about them. These are my 2 suggestions of the variants that I want to use. Let's look deeper now. Let's look at the tech side of what this can do because Sera Tech is probably going to end up being this card's home. So there are 2 ways you could run Sera Tech decks. First one is a Hitmonkey-oriented Power Slam type of deck. I think this is incredibly strong right now. This is going to have all those big pieces you want, get a giant Hitmonkey, and put down a load of cards at the very end because the new Angela exists. With new Angela existing, we're going to get a load of power that we can move around, and we're not worried about necessarily the Mysterios not having the power that you would want to bast it. It didn't feel right in this deck. This is still a lot of cards to throw out there in some way, shape, or form. That's why I put Luke Cage, just for that extra piece of protection. You can't get rid of the Bishop buildup, the Hitmonkey buildup, the Angela buildup. Luke Cage is just a good just-in-case tech card for this type of deck because you could also play it after Sera with all the giant drops at the very end. Kitty Pryde Angela is back. Let's rock that into a Hitmonkey deck that wants a load of cards that can move around and continue to scale. Angela, Kitty Pryde, bring it on in together. That's version number 1. I'm calling that Red Monkey Butt. If you want to go super techie, not tech god, but super techie, this is Sera Tech It Out. It's feeding similar ideas, but it's really leaning heavily into the Sera Tech line, right? I put some more beefy 2-drops in this. So you've got Maximus in here, which is typically used as a turn 6 play. Silk is in here because it's something that can bounce off of the Angela by putting other things on there. So now you've got 2 movable pieces to go off of Angela, and it doesn't require the Kitty Pryde consistency on there. Could you put in Hope Summers into this deck? Absolutely. Is it mandatory? Not at all, because I think the techie side to this is wanting to run Enchantress in particular, because I love her, just not with Zabu anymore. We saw the death of Zabu in the most recent patch, and you can probably build a pretty damn good Sera Tech deck without it. So let's rock a 3-cost Enchantress on the final turn of the game, or have her go down with even Silk or Maximus, and that's a pretty good counter swing to deal with also. Lots of tech into this deck, and Red Guardian's going to just be feeding into that. Now, I apologize in advance for this final deck. I really do. I thought about what to name it, and it only had one name in my head. The 48K. Why? Because this is a 48,000 collector token deck, and I know that, and I know that, and I know that. However, I do think it's going to be a good deck. Yes, it is both Thanos and High Evo. Yes, it is Affliction and Stones, so you get Mockingbird and Abomination out cheap. Yes, it is 2 giant Hulks in different ways, plus Thanos and Blob. There's a lot of affliction here because Red Guardian feeds brilliantly into affliction decks. So now between Wasp, Red Guardian, and Cyclops, plus the Soul Stone, you've got 4 different cards that can afflict before turn 4 to get that Abomination out, even if it's simply on curve. I liked that synergy. So then, of course, all the stones and Mockingbird and et cetera, et cetera. Look, this is an expensive deck, and I know that. It's a lot of collector's tokens. It's taken a lot of time and a lot of investment, but it doesn't mean it's going to be a bad deck. So let's take the elements of High Evo that work really well together. Let's take the elements of the Thanos decks that work well together still to this current day, even with Thanos starting in your hand. And honestly, you've got Hope Summers, you've got the protection of Kyera. I expect this deck to actually be a very good performer. A 3/5 Red Guardian in total is a great piece that gives you extra incentive to want to use Red Guardian on curve. That's how this deck is going to feel. So if you get the Red Guardian, go for it. If you get the Hope Summers and Wasp line on turn 3, you go for that line. I like this type of hybrid deck. I know this is an expensive deck, but it just feels organic and feels like a good home for the Red Guardian. So I want to hear what else you, the community, are also going to look to do with Red Guardian. Let me know down in the comment. When you go down there to subscribe, please, just leave me a comment. Let me know what you want to run with the Red Guardian. Do you want to do a different variation on the Silver Surfer deck? Do you want to do a different variation on Cerebro 3? Or what cards are your favorite into Sera Tech? How are you going to use this unique card? I'm excited for it. You should be excited for it. And you should also be ready to see some chaos come from the Red Guardian this week. That is today's Spotlight. Thank you so much for enjoying it. If you want to see these recorded live, come join us live on Twitch. We just hit Twitch Partner, so we are going to have a celebration probably next week if all goes well. Some kind of giant community event. More details coming soon. Thank you all so much, and please enjoy the rest of your day.